All right, let's jump right in. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something every single football fan literally lives to debate: the future. We are diving deep into a full 1 to 20 ranking prediction for the 2026/27 Premier League season. And we're not just looking at where the clubs are predicted to land, we're breaking down exactly why this data expects certain teams to lift the trophy and others to suffer the absolute heartbreak of relegation. There are some massive upsets and brilliant tactical narratives baked into these numbers, so let's get to it.
To make sense of this raw 20-club data, we're going to slice the table from top to bottom into 4 distinct tiers. First up, the top 4 contenders. Then, the European chasing pack. Moving down to mid-table and survival, and finally, the relegation zone drop.
Okay, Section 1, the top 4 contenders. Let's look at the rarefied air where the title and those crucial Champions League spots are decided.
Coming in at number 1, the data predicts Liverpool will capture the ultimate prize in 26-27. But what's really interesting here is the why. The analysis points to a perfectly timed squad maturation. While other heavyweight clubs are projected to be navigating tricky transition phases or managerial shifts, Liverpool's core group is expected to hit its absolute peak. The forecast expects them to pair a devastating, high-octane transitional attack with some serious defensive solidity. In a league notorious for its grueling winter schedule, it's actually that defensive consistency against the lower half teams that is projected to secure them the title.
So, looking at who lines up right behind them, we've got Manchester City in second, Arsenal in third, and Chelsea rounding out that highly coveted top 4. Honestly, the makeup of this group really highlights the modern realities of the Prem. These are the clubs with the immense financial muscle and squad depth you absolutely need to compete on multiple fronts. City taking the runner-up spot suggests a really strong season, but maybe they suffer just a bit from squad turnover or a tiny drop in their usual relentless consistency. Meanwhile, Arsenal and Chelsea secure their elite European status by heavily leveraging deep benches, which, let's face it, is a total game-changer in the modern 5-substitute era.
But look at this right here. The margins at the top are expected to be razor-thin. Arsenal secures third, just barely edging out their London rivals, Chelsea, in fourth. The underlying projection credits Arsenal's superior defensive record and a more established tactical identity under pressure. Both are getting Champions League football, for sure, but Arsenal's ability to grind out ugly results away from home in hostile environments is what ultimately separates them from Chelsea.
Moving right along to Section 2, the European chasing pack, covering positions 5 through 10.
This group is super dynamic. Newcastle United leads the charge in 5th, knocking really loudly on the door of the top 4, followed closely by Aston Villa in 6th. These two are projected as your primary disruptors of the established elite, using smart recruitment and aggressive tactical setups. Spurs sit in 7th, keeping them in the European mix. Down in 9th is Brighton. But a massive standout here, Nottingham Forest impressively locking down a top-half finish in 10th. The projection credits Forest Rise to turning their home ground into an absolute fortress and finally finding some real stability and cohesion in their long-term transfer strategy.
Now, you might have noticed the elephant in the room. Manchester United drops down to 8th position. This is a massive talking point. Sitting behind Newcastle, Villa, and Spurs, the reasoning here is deeply rooted in structural struggles. The analysis points to a prolonged rebuild phase where the squad really struggles with consistency, especially against teams that sit back in a low block. It's a harsh projection. It basically predicts a season of dropped points away from home and an inability to break down stubborn, well-organized mid-table teams.
Okay, Section 3, mid-table and survival. Let's look at this crucial, often murky middle ground where consistency is literally the holy grail to avoid the drop.
Here we see 5 clubs, perfectly insulated in the mid-table, from Palace at 11th down to Leeds at 15th. They're separated from the glamour at the top, but more importantly, they are safe from the sheer panic at the bottom. What unites this group in the projection? Tactical pragmatism. They aren't necessarily playing the most expansive, free-flowing football, but they know exactly how to grind out 1-0 wins, secure vital points at home, and avoid those devastating losing streaks that drag you into a relegation dogfight.
But as we move just below that insulated pack, the margin of safety gets incredibly thin, especially for newly promoted sides. We have Sunderland surviving in 16th, sitting just above Ipswich Town in 17th. And their outlooks are fascinatingly different. Sunderland's survival is credited to a rigid, highly disciplined defensive structure. Basically, they're perfectly willing to concede possession and hit teams on the counterattack. Ipswich Town, on the other hand, is perilously close to the drop because their tactical setup is deemed a bit too expansive. They want to play on the front foot, which unfortunately leaves them exposed and frequently punished by elite Premier League attackers.
And finally, we reach Section 4,
the relegation zone drop. Let's look at the 3 unfortunate clubs predicted to fall back into the championship.
This isolates the stark reality for Coventry City, Fulham, and Hull City, sitting in the bottom 3 spots. The outlook for a newly promoted side like Coventry is particularly bleak here. The underlying data points to a severe lack of top-flight squad depth. They might play an attractive brand of football early on, but the sheer physical toll of the Premier League schedule just catches up to them. Late-game fatigue is projected to cost them crucial points in the final 20 minutes of matches, steadily dragging them right below that safety line.
And honestly, the absolute heartbreak of this data lies in the margins. Coventry City finishes in 18th, missing survival by a single ranking position compared to Ipswich. It just perfectly illustrates how one missed penalty, a late equalizer, or even mere goal difference across a grueling 38-game season can be the defining factor between keeping your Premier League status and suffering the massive financial and emotional blow of dropping down a division.
Anchoring the whole thing, the source definitively places Hull City in the 20th and final position. Their projected downfall is tied to fatal flaws built really early in the campaign. We're talking about a leaky defense that gets exposed right out of the gate, absolutely destroying team morale, combined with a critical failure to recruit a proven, reliable goal scorer who can bail them out of those tight games.
It is just fascinating to see the entire league mapped out like this, with the structural reasoning behind every single placement. From Liverpool's perfectly timed peak to Manchester United's struggles, all the way down to Coventry's heartbreaking drop. So I'll leave you with this. Looking at these exact placements and the tactical logic driving them, do you think this 26-27 prediction will actually become reality? Think about where your club landed, analyze the gaps, and get into the debate. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the data.